Welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and our show today is recorded on January 9th in the new year, episode 33. And today we're going to take a look at the onset of winter at some places around here. Particularly, we'll start off with Tiganic Falls. We had some wonderful snow, which we didn't have much of last winter, of course, in late December. So I went over to Tiganic with my brother, who happened to be visiting just after Christmas. And this was on the 30th. And we had a lovely time there with the two snowfalls amounted to about a foot. But let's actually take a look at a nice little video that I put together. And we'll get it up here on the screen in a moment. Let's see. Huh? Okay, so hope you enjoy that as much as I did putting it together. You notice the music was by a man named Duke Koistra, who is a local musician. He's put together some meditation type, beauty type music, which fit very well with the atmosphere of the icy rock amphitheater of Tiganic Falls. A lot of people have been out taking pictures lately, and sometimes I show other people's photographs. And I got permission from a local photographer named Deanna Stickler-Lawrence, who was out hiking last Sunday on the 6th, and along Fall Creek, along the Cayuga Trail, and I guess in part of some of the Cornell Plantations preserves. And she took some pictures that I'm going to share with you. And here's a shot looking from a bluff overlooking Fall Creek. It's actually a pretty unstable situation there. I don't think that's right on the trail, probably not advisable to. It's certainly not to advise anybody to go out on and get this kind of shot. Here's a map from Cornell Plantation showing the general area. This is upstream from the campus, um, Forest Home, upstream from Forest Home area, I believe. And so there's a bunch of different plantations, preserves in there indicated, but just to give you an idea of the overall look. But back looking off that bluff, right down to the water, an icy scene. But she went down to the shore of the bank of the stream, and here's a photo. But you look just right of center. There is this dark blob. We'll go in a little bit closer than that. That is a beaver. Now, we usually don't think of seeing beavers this time of year. Here's the same beaver coming down the bank to the snow. And there are beavers in Fall Creek. There are beavers in most of the watersheds around here now. Didn't used to be. 100 years ago, you could hardly find a beaver, and they eliminated the trapping season long ago so beavers could recover, but now beavers are all over the place, and they have reemerged into a landscape that's now filled with people. Beavers were largely eliminated by trapping to make felt for fur hats or felt hats in Europe, and so long gone even in the 19th century. So here's a beaver in the stream. Now we think of beavers, oh, they're in a pond. The ponds are iced over. They have a lodge, but this is what you might call a bank beaver. That is, they have a bank lodge. It's an excavation in the earthen bank, as you saw in that bluff there, somewhere, probably with an underwater entrance so that predators can't easily get in. About the only thing that can get into them to bother them is an otter, which we do now have around here with their reintroduction, I should say. And so where there's the stream flowing or there's open water, the beavers can actually come out in winter and hunt for food. In a pond, they stay under the ice, and they will get sticks that they have rammed into the bottom of the mud of the pond and cut them off and bring them back into the lodge and eat them inside the lodge. But here is a beaver that has cut a stick, probably a fresh one because it was coming down the slope there. Perhaps it had gone up the slope to find some twigs of proper size that had good bark on them, and they eat the bark and they eat the buds because they are nutritious. The growth layer in the twigs has a lot of protein and so forth in it, and also in the buds. So that's what they live on in the wintertime, is bark underneath. Well, if they're a pond beaver, then that builds dams and so forth, and it's iced over, they will actually store them underneath. But here they are, out feeding on twigs gotten from the shore in the wintertime. So here he is chowing down, he or she, you can't tell from taking a picture. Deanna said this beaver was huge. She got up, this is about 5 feet away, she took this picture. This beaver was huge, the size of a bear cub, and they can grow up to about 40 pounds. So beavers are all around now. There's a trapping season in the winter, and I don't know exactly when it ends because there are these wildlife management areas that are, or zones that the DEC manages, and they have different trapping seasons in each one, and we're sort of on the boundaries of 2 or 3 of them. So, but there is beaver trapping going on. Used to be rarer, but now a lot of folks consider beavers a pest. At least if you're a farmer or something and you have a culvert, and they will tend to dam up the culvert and flood your fields or flood your road or that sort of thing. So, but I like beavers, and I think we need to learn to live with them. So we've had some thawing weather here. Let's see my notes here. Let's see. Yeah, it's been we had some cold weather and we had the snow, but now it's in the 40s today. I noticed coming down to the studio, it's 48 degrees this afternoon. It's supposed to go into the 50s this afternoon. So I heard somebody on the news say, oh, we're having our January thaw. Well, 30 years ago, when I used to run winter fests at Robert Treman State Park, we would always be watching out for the January thaw because we would run the winter fests in late January or sometimes early February, and that's just about when we'd get the January thaw. And now we're getting a January thaw hardly into January, and it's really thawing. I mean, into the 50s, almost to 60s, maybe 60 this weekend, 55 or something like that. They're talking about on Saturday. So things are warming up, and last year was the warmest year on record in Ithaca and in the country. And I'm going to just refer to a Ithaca Journal piece on that. This was on January 4th. Climatologists agree 2012 was the hottest year on record as researchers at the Northeast Regional Climate Center at Cornell University continue to crunch the numbers. Preliminary data showed that it was the warmest year for the United States. We expected this to be a record year, said Jessica Rennells, climatologist with the center. So Ithaca, Binghamton, Buffalo, Syracuse, and Rochester all broke records, with other regional cities coming close. It's also true for major cities such as Philadelphia, New York City, and Washington, D.C. So you can say it's La Nina or something like that, but the warmest years, most all the warmest years in general in the United States and in the world have been in the last 15 years. So the Earth is warming up. Now, if you think that if you don't think global warming is happening, well, I recommend you go on down to Cinemapolis and check out this documentary that's playing there now, which won a Sundance Festival award, 2012 award for cinematography, and photography is incredible. And I'll just read a little bit about it. Chasing Ice, it's called. In the spring of 2005, acclaimed environmental photographer James Balog headed to the Arctic on a tricky assignment for National Geographic to capture images to help tell the story of the Earth's changing climate. Even with a scientific upbringing, Balog had been a skeptic about climate change. But that first trip north opened his eyes to the biggest story in human history and sparked a challenge within him that would put his career and his very well-being at risk. Chasing Ice is the story of one man's mission to change the tide of history by gathering undeniable evidence of our changing planet. Within months of that first trip to Iceland, the photographer conceived the boldest expedition of his life, the Extreme Ice Survey. With a band of young adventurers in tow, Balog began deploying revolutionary time-lapse cameras across the brutal Arctic to capture a multi-year record of the world's changing glaciers. So they go to Greenland, Iceland, Glacier National Park in northern Montana, and Alaska, and the photography is incredible, and it also will leave you some real reference images about the whole issue of global warming, because it's very dramatic, the retreat of the glaciers that's going on, and there's really no other explanation. So all right, so go back to our normal aspect here. Well, in the spirit of all of that, I'm going to show you another video that I made a few years ago, and it's called Winter Water, and I think you're going to enjoy it. We'll cue that up. We'll go back to Tiganic a couple weeks ago and with this little cover photo here, and I'll cue up this video. In November and December, winter comes to the gorges in the Finger Lakes region. Mist around Tiganic Falls freezes on the cliffs. The moving water of Buttermilk Creek resists freezing as the snow accumulates on the hemlock trees and rock ledges. snow sits on the ledges of Pinnacle Rock above Buttermilk Creek in Buttermilk Falls State Park. Ice soon covers the trail, making it treacherous. The gorge trail has been closed. Soon, Buttermilk Falls itself is covered with ice. Buttermilk Creek flows under the ice, which spreads out like a glacier. Tiganic Creek freezes to form a huge ice dome at the base of the 215 feet high falls. The ice dome is like a volcano in reverse. Water plunges into a crater at the top. Then water spills out over the top of the dome to freeze on the sloped ice, increasing the size of the dome. Tiganic Creek flows out from under the ice dome and emerges at the dome's downstream edge. Tiganic Creek flows into Cayuga Lake, which has cooled to just a few degrees above freezing. Fishermen try their luck for trout and salmon feeding near the mouth of the creek. AES Cayuga Power Station burns coal from Pennsylvania to create electricity at Milliken Point. Fall Creek flows over icy Ithaca Falls on its way to the southeast corner of Cayuga Lake. The southern end of the lake is choked with ice. Ducks huddle together in the wind and frigid water. A train heads north along the east shore of Cayuga Lake to pick up rock salt from the Lansing mine. The train will deliver salt to highway departments all over New York and New England. Finally, the thaw comes. In this case, Glen Creek in Watkins Glen at the south end of Seneca Lake roars with runoff from melting snow. Okay. So that's what winter is supposed to look like, and maybe it will this year. Although we are having our thaw a little early. That thaw was actually in January, but it was late January. I don't know. But we've already had more of a winter in the last week or two than we had all last year, except the winter that we had in April. So, well, if you're planning to go out and hike, there's something you should know. Like in the fall, we have deer hunting season, starts in November and ends in early December. And that's a time when people like to hike but not hunt. Have a hard time finding places where they're going to necessarily feel totally comfortable about people with shotguns. So, that's over, so you can hike anywhere, right? Well, starting this weekend, I think it's Sunday the 13th. Anyway, the 13th it is, whatever, maybe that's a Monday. In any case, there will be deer hunting resume in parts of Tompkins County, and that's a special project here. I'm going to just to read a little bit about it to you. This is called Deer Management Focus Areas. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has announced the first of its kind deer management focus area for 60,000 acres surrounding Ithaca for this year. So this program was established in central Tompkins County to intensify use of hunting to assist communities with the burden of overabundant deer populations, a very controversial topic in the area. The DMFA, Deer Management Focus Area Program, is established to reduce total deer populations within the focus area by providing more time and more tags to hunters who can gain access to huntable land. Hunters who register to participate in the focus area program may legally harvest 2 antlerless deer per day during the regular season, in the fall I mentioned, and during a special January 13th through January 31st deer management focus area season. And this is the area you look at outlined there with those borders and around, well, those areas that have 7H, 7R, 8S, those are management areas, wildlife management unit areas for the DEC is established, and they don't really follow municipal boundaries as much as you might think. So you have to go on their website and find out, or if you're a hunter, I guess you'll get a map or something. But this is the area all around the city of Ithaca, not in the city. Basically, in all the areas you could hunt in the fall, you can hunt here. And I just got a little message that I'm running out of time here, so you can find out more about that at the DEC website, and also Cornell Plantations has a little information about it as well. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll be again back next week with another show. And so be safe and be healthy.